It is me, guys, Max here, back again with hopefully another great political video. And what the fucking god, man, there's so much news that we need to cover. Now, first of all, in Texas' 34th Congressional District, we have a special election in order to fill a vacant House seat, and what happens? Republicans win. A historically Democratic district. A district that voted Democrat by 14 points in 2020. A district that, if we look up the history of House elections, I can show you that in 2020 US House elections, this district has never been competitive. Throughout history, it has always been a Democrat district. I can show you that right here. You see this map? The district is right here in southern Texas. And no matter how far back you go, let's say we go back one election cycle to 2018. This is a blue district. 2016, 2014, 2012, 2010, 2008. This in southern Texas has always been a solid blue district for a generation by now. And tonight it happened. Republican nominee Maya Flores won that special election, and it wasn't even close. Now, to be fair, if she would have gotten below 50%, that would have led to a runoff. But still, look at all those red counties. I mean, even in 2020, these counties were not overwhelmingly Republican. And she won all of them, and that is a Latino heavy area. I mean, it is really insane how much the votes in southern Texas and also Florida, how much those Hispanic votes have shifted into the Republican column. And Maya Flores is not even like a moderate or liberal Republican. She's fairly strict on immigration. And yet, so many Hispanic voters came out and voted for her in droves. This conventional wisdom that we had for decades, that Latinos would vote Democrat because of their immigration policy, just turns out to be not true. They probably voted Democrat for economic reasons, but now that the Republican Party's talking points have shifted from deregulation and stuff like that to more like kitchen table issues such as gas prices and inflation, and also talking about stuff like immigration a little more, it really seems like Republicans have made more of a connection to working class voters, and that includes Hispanic working class people. So, this district, major news. It voted for a Democrat by 14 points in 2020, and tonight a Republican wins it. I mean, this is amazing. So we might not even be talking about a red wave in 2022. It might actually be a red tsunami that's coming in. I mean, seriously, it is insane. I want to prove it to you guys. Because, like, in 2020, this district was won, and I am not joking. It was won by 14%, and now it went to the Republicans. Here we have it at the New York Times. Alright, let's go to this very district down there. 14% for Philemon Vela. And now the Republicans flipped it. It is incredible. However, that was not the only result of tonight. South Carolina also held its primary. The incumbent Republican McMaster easily won renomination. Joe Cunningham, the fairly moderate representative from Nancy Mace's old district, won the nomination for Democratic governor. Speaking of Nancy Mace, I mean, yeah, this is Senate primary. Tim Scott's gonna win. No, not even that's not even up for debate. But like Nancy Mace, the woman who at first made an appearance as if she was fairly conservative, turned out to be quite liberal on some social issues. She uses pronouns on her Twitter account and personally considered herself a strong ally of the LGBT community and stuff like that. I don't personally believe she's as conservative as she claimed to be. Trump endorsed Katie Arrington. However, the fact that Nancy Mace did not literally vote to impeach Donald Trump, and also that she is up in a pretty suburban district that has a lot of traditional Republican voters, probably brought her over the edge. However, another guy named Tom Rice, who did vote to impeach Donald Trump, lost his primary tonight to Russell Fry, and it was a pretty overwhelming victory for that guy. So it was if it shows us precedent. If you are not an ally of Donald Trump, you can get through in Republican politics. but if you actively work against him, lots of people view you as acting against the Republican Party. So that's why he lost his primary. Now, overall, I do think Donald Trump is losing influence. I do think that he does no longer have any allies within the Republican Party establishment, and his core base, which is like 20 to maybe 30% of the electorate, that is shrinking, and it is no longer much bigger than the traditional Republican base in the suburbs that most of my family is a part of, that are like more traditional conservatives who would vote for candidates like Jeff Flake and Mike Pence and people like that. And it's starting to be more balanced, and I believe there's going to be at least some strong primary challenger to Donald Trump if he runs again in 2024. However, that's a topic for another time. Now let's look at Nevada. Adam Laxalt won the nomination. By this point, it's pretty evident. Catherine Cortez Masto won as well, but she's the incumbent. So Adam Laxalt will run for U.S. Senate for the Republicans. Former Attorney General was a nominee for governor in 2018. And even though 2018 was a blue wave year, I would like to say that he still fared pretty well. I'll look that up very quickly. Yeah, we have that, the New York Times. So 2018 was like a +8 National Democratic Party environment, and still Adam Laxalt came fairly close towards beating Steve Sisolak. At least he kept him under 50%. And if he runs in a +9 Republican wave here in the U.S. Senate, I believe he has a pretty solid chance at winning this race. And I do think that he'll be probably the next senator from that state. Other than that, I believe we have, Secretary of State, looks like Jim Marchant. Weird name. Marchant. He's going to win, probably. I'm not sure, though. And for the governor's race, it looks like Joe Lombardo, the sheriff, is about to win. He's really only winning one area, which is, I believe this is Clark County, or is that, yeah, I think, is it Clark County? What's the name of the county that Las Vegas is in? May I be damned, I do not know the name of the county, but certainly that is where the votes are. That is what decides elections. There's sometimes elections where that's the only county that Democrats win, and it ends up swinging the entire state. So if he needs to do well in that area if he wants to do well in the general election. And other than that, we have Steve Sisolak obviously won the primary. And there have been a few cases in which, like, the more left-wing Democrats tried to primary out the establishment wing of the party. With limited success, I'd like to say. There are some cases where they got a little closer, but I believe all the Democrats won renomination. That's not a big deal. And it will be interesting to see which Republicans they're going up against. I think Mark Robertson is like a boxer or something, if I remember correctly. Or was it St. Peters? One of those guys who's running for Congress in Nevada as a Republican is a former boxer and had a few cringy ads that made him a little celebrity in social media cycles, but that's not that important. Now, in North Dakota, we have a guy who's pretty interesting. John Hoeven won his primary, and that guy is an absolute electoral juggernaut. He usually wins all of his general elections by 80%. And, alright, North Dakota is a safe Republican state. But it's usually like 60% for the Republican candidate, 40% for the Democrat, maybe 63 or 37. He won 80-20, and his margins are not shrinking. He usually carries every single county in the general election. So pack your bags, Katerina Christensen. You can go home. All right. Other than that, we have nothing really interesting here. In Maine, we will have something a bit more interesting now. There is a primary for the 2nd district, which is very competitive. Bruce Poliquin, I believe, Poliquin, is kind of a very liberal Republican and has always been super moderate and stuff like that, which for a Trump district, because Maine's 2nd district is a Trump district, even though it has a Democratic representative, he's pretty liberal for his area. And it doesn't surprise me that Elizabeth Caruso did pretty well, despite the fact that she was deeply underfunded. And I do think that if she would have had the necessary funding, she probably would have beaten him, even though that guy held the seat before. Other than that, I think there's the governor's primary, at least there's a governor's race, and LePage was uncontested, and the incumbent was also uncontested. I do think LePage is the best candidate. He's kind of a very conservative guy for Maine. However, Maine does have a history of like electing pretty radical people in both directions, and also electing pretty moderate people. It's kind of a weird state in that regard, pretty independently minded. So we'll have to wait and see. It'll certainly be an interesting race. But nothing can cover the fact that today Republicans flipped a historically heavy Democratic seat. A very working class, very Hispanic area, and that is exactly the type of voters that Republicans need to bring into the party if they want to counterbalance the suburban shift that has been happening recently. Suburban votes are important. That's what carried Glenn Youngkin to victory in Virginia. But if Republicans really want to have a solid, future proof strategy through which they can win elections, they need to make an outreach to Hispanic voters, and they do so by appealing to working class issues like immigration, issues like making the border secure, trade deals, and of course, most importantly, covering those social issues that many people of the Hispanic working class and working class across America care about, traditional values and stuff like that. Still talk about economic issues, but talk more about stuff that helps your average Joe rather than just tax cuts for huge corporations. I think that's the type of field that the Republican Party needs to move on from. It still needs to be a pro-business party, but not a pro-business above all else. That's how you win the future. Alright now, I think this should be it for this video. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope to see you by my side while we keep covering the 2022 midterms and the path leading us to the 2024 presidential election. It'll be very exciting to see. Get some popcorn. There'll be a crowded field on both sides because I believe ultimately the Republicans will move on from Trump. And yes, without Trump, the Democrats will move on from Biden and probably find a Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, or Buttigieg, or whatever that guy's name was again. And it'll be a very interesting race to watch. Nobody knows what happens. And I'm ready to find out. Have a good day, guys, and see you next time.